What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, and I am joined by two co-hosts today. I've got my usual co-host, Kyle Henning, on the top right of the screen. Kyle, how are we doing today, sir?
Doing all right. Good thing it's Wednesday and not Sunday or Monday when we're having this conversation, but doing all right today.
Yeah, it's good. It is a day. It sure is a day. And then joining us once again, we've got Mr. Chief of the North himself, Randy Ellenberger, on. Randy, how we doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome. I have flushed that game from Sunday out of my memory, and I am looking forward to redemption. That's
good. That's good. Got to flush it out the memory because that was not a fun one on Sunday. The Chiefs falling to the Broncos, losing their first game in 16 matchups versus the Broncos. As Broncos fans are proudly, boasting about how no team beats them 17 times in a row. Ain't no one gonna beat them 17 times. I'll tell you what. So Broncos, had their biggest game of their entire franchise's history, and we had a pretty embarrassing game. We're gonna talk about it. We're not gonna get too deep into it because we're trying to really flush it. I think it's Andy Reid kind of talked about it. It was kind of a perfect storm of errors and faults and just a lot of stuff that went wrong. So obviously it probably mostly starts on the offensive side of football. Patrick Mahomes battling the flu in a cold Denver where it was snowing before the game. There wasn't actually any snow during the game, which was a little unfortunate to see, but that probably would have made it worse. I don't know. We'll take what we can get, but
I don't know how much worse it could have got. I think Randy and I were headed to the same boat on that one.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. As we were kind of talking about pre-show, it seemed like the entire team had the flu or of some variety because it was just very sloppy, poor execution, poor play calling, poor performances. It was just a real bad showing from the offense. What do we think? What do we think, boys?
I don't know if I've ever seen the Chiefs come out and play that flat.
It was just absolutely nothing.
Like zero emotion. Even Travis, like our hype guy, was like, There seemed like there was nothing there. Guys making just silly, basic mistakes on fundamental stuff, and just like there was no fire, there was no spark, no nothing, and it was just one of those perfect storms where everything that could have gone wrong basically did. And maybe it was just a mental, we've beaten Denver so many times, we just played them a couple weeks ago, we're going to coast this thing out and look forward to Miami. But it just comes to show that you have to show up every single week. You cannot take a week off, and maybe we get a little accustomed to our C+ game being able to beat a lot of these teams, but that's not so much the case all the time. Like, you got to show up ready to play, and I hope this pisses everyone off is what I hope happens. I hope everyone's pissed off and takes it out on the Dolphins in Germany.
If you're gonna win games with a C+ game, you have to have A+ execution when you bring a C+ game plan. And they didn't have A+ execution with a C+ game plan. And I know that Andy will say forever and ever and ever and ever that he doesn't hold stuff back and they don't do different things at the beginning of the year than they do later in the year and whatnot. But we see it every year. Like, September and October seems to be experiment land, and then November to February is when they decide that it's time to actually button it down. So they walked in there. The play calling is still, and Andy said it, I don't understand some of the stuff they're doing in the red zone and on short yardage. The field goals when you're the decision, and I know we have some of these conversations and all this stuff a lot, but when you go in and you do those things and then you hand the other team the ball 4 times, you're not going to win those games. The defense still only gave up themselves less than 20 points, guys.
Yeah.
Because the offense gave them the ball for their touchdown drives at the 50, the 39 of Kansas City, and the 10 of Kansas City.
Yeah. That's 4 extra possessions. Regardless if the defense is playing lights out, which for the most part, they were 6 sacks on the day, all on 3rd and 4th down. Defensive line showed up. Corners played a great game, minus a couple of errors, but you can't expect to come out with a win when you have 5 turnovers. You're giving that even a bad offense or extra possessions.
Yeah,
and having a short field, that's just where it's like you're losing the yardage battle right there.
2 of those are guaranteed points essentially.
Yeah, it's like,
and they blocked the field goal. By the way,
every time that they didn't have a short field, the defense shut them down.
Well, so Justin Reed even took points away from him on a shorter field where they blocked a friggin' field goal because he timed the snap perfectly and blocked it.
Yeah,
and then the offense turned around and
did nothing.
Gave him the ball back.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of out of rhythm. I don't know.
There is no rhythm. Let's be honest. There is no rhythm on offense right now. There is no
comfortability. There's no like it just doesn't feel like an offense that's been practiced a lot. It's weird. Like obviously we know how Andy Reid they should be sharp. They should be a pretty sharp offense, but it's just everyone, it's been talked about a lot how Pat doesn't have trust in his receivers, and I mean it's kind of rightfully so because they're doing some weird things out there, and it's so weird. It's just, especially coming off last week where they actually had one of the best games of the year.
They lit up the Chargers.
Yeah, just had a really good cohesive offensive performance, and then this week it's just like
egg.
Where did it go? How is it just such a drastic change week to week?
That's one of the things I had the hardest times with is like we dismantled a much better football team the week prior. Like the roster in San Diego's better. They're just a flat out better football team all the way around.
Yeah, Denver might have the edge at head coach, but not by a lot.
That's the only. Yeah, that is true.
It was
like
just.
We said,
look, y'all. Brandon Staley is an idiot at this point. I don't really have anything else for it.
He's pretty bad.
I tried to be nice and be gentle about Brandon Staley, but good God.
Yeah, Sean Payton at least is a pretty respectable head coach. Now he hasn't had the best of luck.
He'd be a bit of an ass, judging by some of the stuff he's done. Certainly, his record's a little better than Brandon's.
He's at least got a little more to back it up with, but like we kind of said, it's just showing up with a C plus C minus. This is like a C minus game.
Oh no, this was like a D game overall for the offense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You show up with like a C minus game plan, then when you don't execute, like we said, it's like you're really setting yourself up for failure. It's like you have to, and it's finally November, so maybe we'll see a turnaround here.
I hope so. They have to. There's no
at some point you have to just. It's like Andy's almost just overthinks it. I think he really tries to think too far outside the box. Does all these weird short yardage things, like the red zone. It doesn't make sense, and it's almost you need to go back to like the basics. Just go back to stuff that's worked before. Don't have to be such a crazy offense. Just start putting guys in motion. Start getting like very easy reads, quick throws, quick read like matchups.
Some of this short yardage and the red zone stuff and these plays that we all lose our mind about right now because they're getting blown up. They've done this stuff before in these months. The difference is that this year they're not getting the results that we've seen in the past.
Right.
And a lot of people are extremely frustrated. Now, what's traditionally happened is we run this crap, then we run other crap off of it that looked exactly like it but was totally different 7 or 8 weeks down the road, and then all of a sudden it's 7 points instead of a 3-yard gain or an 8-yard gain or -10 like it has been most of this year when we run that crap.
Right. Yeah. I mean, historically, we've at least seen
they get the benefit of the doubt. They 100% get the benefit of the doubt because they've done this. They've done it, and they've done it, and they've done it. But the mind-numbing frustration is when you do that the first couple drives and it results in field goals, and then you notice that you're having issues in a lot of the other areas. So instead of changing that up and getting the rest of the stuff out and getting a little more aggressive, because there's plenty you've already put in with a lot of the stuff that you're running, and you turn it up to get the stuff done that you need, they just didn't do that against Denver this weekend. And Denver deserves credit. They didn't let them really get going. But at the same time, watch that game again. I've watched the 22 on it twice now. They killed themselves. They absolutely killed themselves.
Yeah.
Whether it was whether it was decision making, whether it was play calling, whether it was drops, whether it was dropping the ball after you caught it, whether it was not catching the punt, whether like you name it, they killed themselves with it. And as much as Denver did what they're supposed to when a team beats themselves, they beat you. That's the end of the story for me on that game. Is the defense showed up, the offense did not, and there was nothing the defense could do about it at the end of the day.
No. Yeah.
You can only take so many body blows before you hit the ground. So
they were on the field like the whole friggin' game, guys.
Yeah, we had one possession into the fourth quarter. The second
that's the other crazy part. Like they literally just the offense just didn't even have the ball for a large chunk of that second half.
Well, they punted at midfield from 4th and like 2 when you're down 8.
And then Hardman drops the punt and gives the ball right back. So it's just
right. It's like it's hard to get the offense even in a rhythm when you're not on the field. So it's
Pat probably sat for an hour from the from the drive in the third to the drive in the fourth. He probably sat for an hour.
I think like the time like between halftime
all the way through to that third quarter drive start. Yeah, it was like an hour.
Yeah, it was a long.
And then they were on the field again for another 7 minutes after that.
And at that point, it's like, well, now it's full just scramble mode. Like
then they stopped the field goal, then they dropped the punt. Like it's
tough. It's tough. What can we do really? What do you think? Like the biggest change we can
light that game film on fire and pretend it never happened.
Obviously, the trade deadline has come and passed, and no moves were made, which was kind of reported for the Chiefs. They feel, at least per Andy Reid, they feel pretty confident in their receiver room, but
they made their moves. They did it already. They told you a week before the trade deadline what they were going to do. The only thing else they were looking to do after Sunday was then when Willie got banged up to go with Nick being out, is they went looking for linebacker help. They weren't necessarily going to trade for it, but they went looking for linebacker help, which, by the way, is why Ben Neiman is now on an active roster.
Thank God.
Because they were going to steal him off a practice squad, and somebody elevated him to their roster to protect him.
I would have lost my...
So instead, they went and got Darius Harris off of somebody else's practice squad.
Which much better.
Much rather. Yeah. Ben Neiman's one of the worst football players I've ever seen in the NFL. That man should not be on a roster at any way, shape, and form.
He keeps making rosters somehow.
Water boy at best. He can bring out your tackle dummies. He can help you sit fields.
He was in the right spot. He knows the right spots. He just can't always get to the right spot.
At least Darius Harris, he'll get to keep his same number, because if Ben Neiman would have came back, they would have had to give him their new number.
Yep, that's true.
And they probably would have gave him 49. And so then we would have just had a bad 49 on the field again. So
look, I know everybody wanted a wide receiver, okay? I know 2 of the 3 people in this room are ready to take one of our wide receivers out to pasture after the game on Sunday.
Woodshed. Straight.
Yeah, I get it. However, there are things to remember. One of them being that 2 of the guys they are heavily depending on have played a combined 17 games between the 2 of them. Because we can talk about Sky Moore last year, but how many actual snaps and meaningful play time did he get during the season last year? Anybody remember?
They had a good receiving core last year.
Other than the punt returns that nobody wanted him within 100 miles of. Did he have much time on the field last year?
Yeah,
but here's the thing, though. Here's the thing.
Random manufacturing.
This is not his first day playing wide receiver.
Sure isn't.
Okay.
However, the NFL's different, and he played at a D2 school.
Close enough.
Well, almost.
But we talked about some of this before we went on recording. It is some of just the basic fundamental things that some of these wide receivers are doing that is just mind-blowingly bad to me.
Yeah,
this is his first day playing wide receiver. He's played it in high school. He played it in college. He's got a year in the NFL under his belt. He had off-season with Pat, all the throwing, all the preseason. There are no excuses for some.
Are we overthinking? As far as when I say we, I mean, are they overthinking? Because when a guy loses fundamentals, it's because they're worried about all the other they're supposed to be focused on. And the little stuff is slipping from I'm focused on the consistent. I'm not worried about the consistent. And then all of a sudden, little things sneak in with a position coach who, look, he's never coached the position at a high level ever.
He's one of the
biggest. Never played the position at a high level ever.
he's got a young group of wide receivers that aren't.
He's got a bunch of kids
that aren't really
Need
talented.
an actual
a ton of
coach.
experience, and he doesn't have any experience teaching these guys how to play the position, which is a huge problem.
And at the NFL level, he may be able to teach him how to play high school wide receiver because he has a year of coaching high school wide receivers under his belt, but he's never, ever coached wide receiver at the college or professional level.
He didn't even play. He didn't even play in the NFL. So it's like
he had 5 catches at KU in his junior season for his entire stat category.
One of the things we were talking about, like pre-show, it's like, Andy Reid does show a big loyalty to promoting guys within. He's been on the staff for a couple years, and now he gets this big promotion. It's like that's great and all sometimes, but like, especially when you have a young group of guys, like we said, it's like it'd be nice if you just brought in a outside voice, just a new receiver coach who's actually coached the position in the NFL, who could actually
played the position.
Yeah, or played it, or just
I don't even know. You don't even necessarily
NFL
have to have played it, but have at least some kind of NFL or collegiate level experience with the position that you're coaching.
Yeah.
And I know we don't know, and it's tough because we don't know. He was an offensive quality control coach the last 2 years. We have no idea what he did as the offensive control coach.
You know what quality control coaches do? They set up practice drills. They do film breakdown. They draw up cards. They get guys in position. They run scout team. They do all the nonsense that the regular full-time position coaches don't do.
Like I said, we don't technically know what he did, but I can tell you that it's not working on footwork and separation drills and hands with wide receivers.
And it's different if you have like a group of guys that already is pretty good at that stuff.
It's different if it's Juju and MVS and a bunch of old dudes who have been in the league for 7, 8, 9 years. When your 2 veteran wide receivers have played a collective 11 years between the 2 of them.
Right.
And the next closest guy on the roster has 12 games of actual play time, I think, 15.
Yeah. Like at some point you got to kind of swallow it. Probably. Plus, I think overall it would probably
until they went and got back the guy that everybody didn't want back or didn't want to begin with.
By just having an outside, voice come in as a receivers coach and
look, we're not trying to tell you that the guy needs to be removed or let go, but it's got to get better, and it's on him to make it get better in a hurry.
I think overall the big message that can be had is from the coaching staff down. It needs to get better. It starts with the coaching staff. I think
correct. 100%. Because I don't think you can sit here and say that there's not talent in that room because of all the conversations that we had leading up to this season about what we saw in OTAs, what we see in the preseason, what some of these guys did last year, what some of these guys have. There's talent in that room. So saying that Brett Veach didn't get into any talent is not right, in my opinion, frankly. And at this point, it's on the staff and the players to get this figured out because they have, as Andy said, what they need in that room. They got to put it together as a group. And it's not just the receivers, and it's not just the quarterback, and it's not just the coaching staff. That's the most disjointed that unit has looked since 15, 87, and Andy have been together. Right. Period, point blank, end of story. There's nothing else.
I need somebody in that room to step up and be the man and be held accountable and say, okay, I'm gonna be the dude. Other than Travis, I'm your guy. It can no longer be the revolving door of every single wide receiver we have on our roster getting even snaps and playing it out.
Yep, and I think something interesting from this week, you mentioned accountability from the wide receivers. Well, McCole, the night of the game, took full responsibility for losing that game.
Yeah.
Even though, and no way in hell that he was the only reason they lost that game.
No.
And Travis went on his podcast on New Heights and said so. Right. But I will say this, that's a receiver in that room stepping up and doing the leader thing that you don't really have in that locker room because in that wide receiver room because there wasn't really that guy. Even with MVS being there
I don't know
for a year.
Yes.
Well, he's only been there a year. McCole's been there for as much as you want to say it. McCole's been there for 4.5.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a different level of, hey, I've been a part of this whole unit. I've been around here when it's supposed to have been successful. I've been around here when we've had to fix it before. We have to fix this. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, he can do things that some of these other guys are not doing right now. And if he's going to continue to step up and be a leader and engage these young guys, because he's engaged Rashee Rice, he's engaged Sky Moore, he's engaging the young crew that's there. He's going to step up, or they're going to have to step up and feed off of him. But somebody, like Randy said, is going to have to do it. And I think 17 is 12 now because they changed his freaking number. Is going to be a guy that's going to get more snaps
soon.
Maybe they opened his practice window, but they were just trying to trade him. Remember that. So
yeah, that was.
I think they're going to start using McColl. I know he just got there or whatever pretty quickly. They're going to start using him more on those deep crossers and over the middle routes that he's been good at getting separation on. There's going to be more, and they've got to cut down. Like Randy said, it can't be 7 dudes rolling in and out of there. They've got to get some rhythm in this offense, and you can't build a rhythm in this offense with that many bodies in and out, unless everybody that walks in catches everything that touches them.
Right.
Then you can do that.
You can't build a
surprisingly big ask.
Get any rhythm. As Kyle and I were talking a little bit earlier, is like get these guys in the right spots too. Sky Moore does not need to be playing outside.
No.
We do not need to be throwing deep
balls
to Sky Moore on 4th down or on big moment times. That's not the guy you look for. You don't look for that guy in that option.
Not on the outside. Maybe if he's in the slot, but not outside.
But that's not where Sky belongs. Sky is a slot receiver running inside mesh, short, quick routes, because that's the only way he can get separation is in short areas, because he does not have that long stride, that long speed, the size to separate. He doesn't have that skill set. That's not in his wheelhouse at all. So stop putting these guys in situations where they're not going to be successful.
Yeah, which ultimately comes back to the coaching staff and Andy Reid and the guys like, hey, set these guys up for success. I know it's a part of like, hey, you got to step up and take the moment and, make a play, but it's like also kind of help them out. Obviously we haven't seen much of that. You need to kind of handicap them and help them however you can,
Well, and that's part of what they've done so much in the past, and why I think that's been part of the experimenting this year versus in years past, where the experimenting's been mostly play calling and not who's getting the play calls.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest change from the experiments in September and October of this year versus September and October of years past. Is who's who has pretty much been determined by the time they broke camp in years past. And I don't know that who's who was really determined by when they broke camp. And it's kind of showed at points. And now we're to the point where this team likes to use the bye as their self-scout, like a lot of teams do. And they don't make a whole lot of adjustments from the first half until they hit their bye. But when your bye is this deep into a season, I know you're 6-2 and you've gotten to this point with some different things working, but it has not been a productive offense, even if you are top 5 in DVOA in the league still in offense. By the way, all 3 categories still. Yeah, this is, by the way, what we talk about. When I talk about when I talk about Tuscaloosa fans, guys, we're complaining about a top 5 offense right now.
Oh yeah,
we're
so far down that rabbit hole of just nothing is good.
Yeah, we just have such a bad taste in our mouth of what we saw on Sunday. Is that we also do need to take a step back.
Well, and when this team loses,
he was hammering it.
It happens every time this team loses, guys. It's not college football.
They
can lose more than one game and still get to the end prize. This is not Georgia losing to Eastern Kentucky or something. Like that's not that.
Technically, the number 1 seed in the AFC. Offensively, statistically, we're playing okay. Defense is playing lights out, which is a huge, huge difference to us this year, which we're not quite used to yet. So I think I think what we need to do is at times we just need to dial it back a little bit, get back to some basics. We have a defense that can hold their own now and even get us some points and keep some points off the board. They can help us out a little bit more than they have in the past. Get back to some basics. We need to run the freaking football.
A little bit more, yeah.
Get back to running some football. Both games, Chaco's had 8 carries.
And not even just running the ball, but using that other portion of your run game that's always been the extension of Andy's run game, which is the short passing game and the screen game. But they're not even doing that because Pacheco and McKinnon are hardly on I know that they're rotating the running backs because they're trying to keep everybody fresh for the first half. But like they're not giving them touches. They're barely on the field. When they are on the field, sometimes they're not getting. And like some of the stuff, like Jet McKinnon is not your inside handoff rush draw guy. What are we doing?
Not
exactly. Back to establishing the roles. It's like, hey, figure out Pacheco, run him inside.
I genuinely think they've limited both of them. I think they limited Pacheco and McKinnon because of the stuff they did in the offseason. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
like I said, it's been a big experimental session.
For saving some of the tread on the tire for the longer portion of the season. I understand that, but when you're struggling, get back to basic football.
Yeah,
get the wheels turning a little bit. Lean on some of those guys that you know you can count on a little bit. I don't need to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a backfield anymore for any reason whatsoever.
I don't see him ever.
All he does is disrupt the rhythm for the other two guys that need to get in a rhythm. That's
all I'm saying is I started a Madden franchise.
I got nothing for defending.
I started a Madden franchise with the Chiefs, and you can get some good pennies from trading Sky Moore and CEH. I'm just saying.
It's not.
Sorry, too late now, but you could have got
the Sky Moore thing. You're not
for both of them.
No. Sky Moore. First of all, a fourth for a guy 18 months after you took him with the second is bad process. When you're cheap and have plenty of time.
I got him, Kyle. You don't even know the half of Kyle. I'm a Madden mastermind.
That's great. All those picks. And I'm glad that works on Madden, but that's not how it works in the NFL, and that's why Brett Veach doesn't do that in the NFL. So
that's true. That's true. But that being said, I did trade up to number 6 overall and took Olu Fashanu. So I mean, I'm just saying.
That's great.
I'm just saying.
I wish that every GM was like a Madden GM. Then they'd all be like Mike Mayock and Dave Ziegler, and then the Raiders would be paying both of them not to work there right now. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's a crazy one, huh?
On the bright side of this last week, the Raiders managed to fire Josh McDaniels. Well, I don't know if that's a bright side. It actually might not be as good for us because I was really hoping Josh McDaniels was going to spend like the next 10 years in Vegas.
I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I'm like, for as bad as the Chargers and the Raiders are with some of the talent they have in that football team, I am happy that those coaches are where they at and they can stay as long as possible because they can screw the pooch at all times.
Although
whatsoever.
Here's my next question though. They're paying John Gruden 6 years worth still of not being their coach. They're paying Josh McDaniels for 4 years to not be their coach. They're paying Mike Mayock 3 years to not be their GM. They're paying Dave Ziegler like 3 years to not be their GM. Who's who's taking that job? Because dear God, who wants that mess? And then what are you paying them with? Groupon?
Yeah, that is
because we know you're broke. That's why you moved him to Vegas.
Antonio Pierce as their interim head coach, which is
currently your home games are funded by away fans. So exactly who is paying them bills, dog?
We never even got to see Josh McDaniels this season.
Nope, I'm sad. We didn't even get to beat him.
Yeah, and we probably won't even get to see Jimmy G because by the time
the playoffs, Aiden O'Connell's going to be starting next week. It sounds like.
Yeah, so we didn't even get to be a part of this little dumpster fire. But,
oh well.
You know,
but hey, at least the Raiders are falling apart. And I think, as I know this is going to sound like normalcy, but I think didn't Mike Williams go down for the Chargers? Aren't they missing like 5 guys again due to injury? Didn't Justin Herbert break his fingers again?
A couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, man. What is it with this division?
Yeah, I think
and those teams. It's just the same stuff every year with this same group. It's wild. But to wrap the Denver game, burn it down. Now,
burn it. Don't even remember it. People forget.
The transition here is, Randy mentioned it. The transition is get back to the basics.
Yeah.
And I think this Dolphins game in Germany is a good game to do that with because this Dolphins defense can be taken advantage of in some areas. Frankly.
Yeah, hopefully there's no playing down to an opponent like this either because they're a pretty good opponent. So at least at worst, we should be getting a good game.
Generally speaking, if we do play to an opponent's level, it should be a good one because they get up for a lot of these games.
Exactly. Right. Usually they wake up when it's a little bit better of a foe. They're hopefully bring like at least a C+, maybe a B- game plan. I want them crazy.
I want them to pull their A card out of their pocket for this game. I know we probably won't get it, but I want him to pull his A card out of this pocket because this is the game you can take complete control of the division of the conference because I think Miami's the other team that's basically tied with us in record at this point, aren't they?
And Baltimore.
The Ravens as well, yeah. So
you can put a game. You have basically two games in hand on the Dolphins if you beat them, because you'll have the tiebreak of head-to-head, I believe.
Yeah.
So when it comes to home field at the end of the year, so you need to go out, and you also need to make a statement with this game somewhat. So that, hey, last week was ugly. 2 weeks prior, before that, against Denver was ugly. We get it. They also see us twice a year. They know us. They know they know a lot of the things that we're gonna do. And yes, they did get beat 16 times in a row, so naturally it's gonna have to happen eventually. We need to come back out and show everybody that's what we call a fluke, and we're here, and this is real. And to quote Patrick, I'm here. Yeah, that the whole time.
Yeah. So for this Dolphins matchup, it's going to be we'll make it kind of short and sweet here. But obviously, we've never faced this iteration of the Dolphins with them in the Mike McDaniel, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa era. So obviously, we know they're a high-scoring offense, a lot of points, a lot of speedy threats. Something the Chiefs fans are very familiar. They've stolen the name Legion of Zoom and use it over there now, which is hilarious. Haven't won a Super Bowl, so I don't know what to tell you. They ain't the real Legion of Zoom, I'll tell you what. But
Tyreek mentioned that today, that in order for Mike McDaniels to start getting recognition like Andy and some of the other big name coaches, they got to start winning bowls for him. So they're aware that they haven't got one of those yet.
That it comes with it. It comes with it. The defense.
They need to make the playoffs. They need to win their division. They need to.
They at least do something.
Being the runner up to Buffalo the last few years, like they need to take a step.
And they got drubbed by Buffalo earlier this year.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I kind of had a philosophy about the Dolphins and the Chiefs this year, because like the Chiefs aren't trying to impress anybody, like we are just rolling out the most basic blah game plans, just grinding them out, whereas the Dolphins are really coming out and being like, hey, look how good we are, look at this
look at me.
Yeah, look at all these points we're scoring, look at this very versatile offense, and it's like, it's great. I think the Chiefs kind of had that a couple of years ago in like 2018, where it's like the start of something like that. But, once you've been there and done that, it's a little bit different. So we'll see. Obviously, like one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL versus one of the lowest scoring defenses, lowest points allowing defenses in the NFL with the Chiefs. So it's going to be, one's going to break. I think the Dolphins are probably going to get some for sure. But this Chiefs defense.
They have too many weapons to hold them down for the whole time. They're going to have to get some there.
This is definitely going to be the biggest test for the defense so far.
If you disrupt Tua on his timing, which, by the way, if you listen to the press conferences for the last couple of days, anybody that you talk to on the defense has said the word timing about 17 times in their press conference.
He's a rhythm thrower.
That's their offense. That's their whole offense is timing.
So here's the Dolphins' biggest flaw with their offense. Their offensive line stinks. Exactly. And I'm being nice. I'm trying to be nice. Their offensive line is hurt in some areas, but they weren't good before they were hurt, and now they've got some depth. They've got a kid playing center right now that's definitely not a center, and I like Liam. He was a Notre Dame kid, but that's not his fault.
They have Liam at center? Oh, my God.
They had Eichenberg playing center last week
crazy.
At points. And I hope, for their sake, that they've got some depth and some other things that they're trying. It's a lot to ask somebody that's never really, 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 really played that position a ton and done it.
Played tackle at college. Yeah, it's like
they've got some issues on that offensive line, and this defensive line is destroying teams right now. From a line perspective and from their pressure perspective, this is a matchup that suits Kansas City quite well defensively. And there's nobody in the league that's more familiar with Tyreek Hill. Nobody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Steve Spagnuolo should have a pretty stout game plan for what
his binder on Tyreek Hill should be about that thick.
Yeah, he should know exactly.
Yeah,
especially
they saw him every day in practice for years.
Right,
and he's used to going against high power offenses like that. I mean, he has to go, like I said, practice versus Andy every single day
with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, so it's safe to say he should know exactly what they're getting into. I have a lot of confidence in the defense of figuring it out versus these guys and putting together a solid game.
Now, the Dolphins do a lot of different stuff week to week. Mike McDaniel is very different from a lot of coaches
Very creative
in that aspect. They
very
don't.
Creative coach.
Tyreek talked about it on the pod on the I Am. If you haven't listened to the I Am Athlete pod with Brandon Marshall, it was actually a pretty solid episode of those two. Tyreek was very good on it for the most part. Nobody really does. He was a Bronco and a lot of other things for a long time. So, and he ran his mouth a ton when he was. So it's not surprising that a lot of Chiefs fans don't. He's not my biggest fan either, but that was a good episode. He actually like I said earlier, he made Tyreek answer some questions that Tyreek tried to around.
So that's better than Tyreek's normal pod where he just has that other co-host that's just like.
You mean his pump up guy, his freaking sideline pump up guy that he has
that's
for
a
his
good way to
co-host?
phrase that. I was gonna phrase it as hype man. Word, that's a better word.
Yeah, I'm gonna be nice because I had about 3 other versions for that too. But he's just hype man.
You had that word on deck.
Yeah. So you got a lot of him being blunt, and he goes, we don't know who's getting the ball each week, so it's hard for the defense too because they're coming in with he comes in with different wrinkles. Who's going in motion? Who's doing this week? Who's doing that this week? They do a lot of different stuff. They're multiple, and he's an adaptation of Shanahan, but I also think he's an adaptation somewhat of that air system and that West Coast. So he's got a little bit of both to where it's going to be interesting.
He's been around a couple different systems. Mike McDaniel has, and he's a very creative guy. Very probably the best football minds in the NFL right now.
He is a very creative guy, but if looking at some of the previous. Right now, that offense is running through Tyreek Hill. He's got about 600 yards more receiving than Waddle and the next guy. He's got about 30 more catches than the next guy. Mostert has had a little bit of a revival this year running the football when the rookie went down. So they're doing some good things there. But
is he still down, the rookie, Achane?
Achane, he went to the IR, so he won't be back for another couple weeks. I don't think.
That's at least one thing with the
this
speedy aspect.
It's running through Tyreek, and Tyreek's having a season.
Got like 1,000 yards already.
He's over 1,000 yards in the first 8 weeks. That's legit, and we know Tyreek is Tyreek. He's the cheetah for a reason. The guy's a stud. I'll give him all the props that he needs. But when it comes to, I think, how we match up and the info and the history that we have with Tyreek, like Kyle mentioned, I think our defensive line versus their O-line is a huge leg up for us. We're going to cause all sorts of problems and give Tua a lot of pressure. We're going to disrupt his rhythm. And I think between L'Jarius Sneed and McDuffie and throwing the length of Josh Williams, and we've got 3 safeties back there that can line up anywhere they want, Tyreek's going to have 2 people on him for the vast majority of the game. We know what he does. We know what he does well, what he doesn't do well. So I think from a schematic point and from a personnel point, we probably will match up against Tyreek and the Dolphins better than most teams. It's just kind of how it's built this year. But it's too like Miami, they're going to get theirs. They put up 70 that we just put 9 on. So
so it's going to be interesting.
24 combined points on a team they hung 70 on or whatever. So 26.5 combined points.
Yeah, so, and like I said, they haven't been perfect this year. They've had a couple flounders with them. The Bills game wasn't the greatest, and they've had some hiccups. But
the two games that they've lost to teams that are simply built like us. With good secondaries and guys that can cause pressure and disrupt timing. So they lost to Buffalo and Philly.
Yep, contenders.
Very real, solid,
real contending teams for this year
that are built properly and are built the way that disrupt what they do. So
I said contenders. Did y'all see the Josh Allen news today?
No.
What happened with Josh Allen?
Buddy DNP with his arm issue from last week. He did not practice today with an injury from that arm that he was huffing and flexing.
We played him sometime this year, right? Like a couple weeks from now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
If his arm is bad, that team is in deep trouble.
That's going downhill fast. Yeah. The defense. I think the defense should show up as always. That's usually we don't have too much of a question about if the defense is going to show up. So it just basically comes down to the offense.
God, that's such an odd sentence from the last several years.
It's crazy to think about.
It's nice that we can actually have a defense to hang our hat on at this point. Like we can count on those guys to make some plays and shut some people.
I wish the offense could follow it up. So that's going to be the biggest thing.
And Travis and Pat both this week have been very clear about their awareness of the fact that they've been getting carried, for lack of a better word, through this first half of the season.
Hey, those guys are competitive. They're not gonna they're not going to let them get carried too much farther. I think they're going to eventually step up and be like, hey,
they better figure it out.
Don't forget about us. Don't forget that we are the best team in the league for the offense's reason. So,
and this is going to be a huge week. We need that next guy to step up because I think with what Miami's going to do defensively, I have a sneaky suspicion that Jalen Ramsey's just going to follow Travis around all game long, because they do have Howard, they do have Apple. So,
please leave Eli Apple one-on-one with McCole. Please,
that would be
please.
That would be fantastic.
I'm begging whoever the defensive coordinator is in Miami. Look, it may not be in your best interest, but specifically for the viewership and the drama of watching those two go head up after all of the mouth running at each other over the last 2 years.
That'd be worth the price.
Please let them go 1v1.
Oh, you know who their defensive coordinator is? It's a guy very familiar with the Chiefs, Mr. Vic Fangio.
Oh, so. Please, Vic, please let him be one-on-one with McCole. In case
no one's realized it, the Chiefs have a pretty good history of cooking Vic Fangio.
And he knows Vic real well.
Yeah. So that's going to be a fun matchup.
And if he does what he normally does and they blitz, dog.
I'm hoping.
Don't do that.
I'm ready for
Don't do that.
I'm ready for the Rashee Rice breakout game. He's been on that precipice. He's been on the fringe the last couple of weeks with some legit plays, and I know one big drop, but he got 4 out of his 5 targets. I think this is the one where Rice comes out and he has a day to kind of help carry the offense. So it's not all on Pat and Travis. So I'm hoping.
I would like that a lot. I honestly actually see this game maybe being a big Mecole Hardman game. Just getting some familiarity back in the offense, getting some just some more basic good football playing, and obviously he knows the offense pretty well. And who knows if Miami will really be game plan for him as much as they do everybody else. So we'll see. We'll see. Like you said, someone's got to step up. And if no one steps up, then we're gonna have another tough Sunday. Very early on in Germany. There'll be 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Arrowhead time.
Yep.
7:30 my time. So at least it's not like the London games were at 6 a.m. my time.
Yeah. I already told my buddy who's the pastor at my church. I'm like, I'm not going to be there Sunday. I'm sorry, but say a little
sorry about it
if you want, but I'm not going to be there.
Yeah. So
it's at 8:30 in the freaking morning, yo.
Yeah.
Thank God daylight savings time, I guess, is this weekend, because that's still a thing for another year or two or
daylight
whatever.
Savings time this weekend?
That. Yeah. We can get an hour back Saturday. Nice.
That's great, because Arizona doesn't do daylight saving time, so we're about to be mountain time again. That's honestly best time of the year. It's great. When
I forget that some states in this country don't do that, so then certain they switch time zones and crap. It's wild.
With us and parts of Indiana.
I've never understood the whole point of that. Why?
Because it sets more sunlight during the daytime hours. Because it was done for,
I agree.
Well, it was done for back in the eras when you worked in factories and worked outside and had to get more daylight when they didn't have artificial light to pump out everywhere.
Yeah.
That's why.
Mountain Standard Time is probably the best time zone. Just having lived it last year.
I miss Mountain Standard Time.
Mountain Standard Time is a very solid time zone.
You get everything just late enough and just early enough.
Yeah, the games are at 11 in the morning instead of 10. It's just a good. You got some time. It's a good.
Although I am kind of glad.
That's some good news.
I guess I am kind of glad that I'm not in Mountain Time this week, because that game would be at 7:30, not 8:30. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, should be a good game. Score predictions. We want to get quick score predictions here. 49-42 Chiefs.
No, I don't think there's going to be nearly that many points put up on either side, frankly. The Dolphins' defense is not atrocious, so I don't think we're going to get 50 burgers hung up in any direction. I think you're looking 28-24. Okay. And I don't really know which team is which in that scenario, but
I'll just put that
28-24-ish. I'd probably lean Kansas City just because I think they're going to respond to how what happened last week and their decision making and all the stuff we've gone over and some of the nonsense, because this team knows they're not new. They're aware of what the standard is, and they're very aware they're not playing to it. So there's plenty that can be fixed that it doesn't involve having to go outside and get a bunch of pieces that could insta-fix things. There's plenty to fix internally that will make this team more than enough of a threat that people will not want to deal with them at any point down the stretch.
Right.
As long as they go do some of the stuff, like Brandy said, is the most frustrating part. Some of this stuff is basic.
Yeah.
Catch the ball with like this, not curled up against your body.
And
don't
then turn around and run.
Get in. If your ball's up here, you turn with it. You turn and you go upfield. Just simple stuff like stop it.
Look over the correct shoulder. Don't lose the ball on the light. Don't drop a ball that hits you in the hands. Don't drop a punt that hits you in the hands. Don't
inside the 5-yard line. Just let it by.
Just simple. Well, and again, we talked about that pre-show. Some of that may be McCole. Some of that may be your special teams coordinator. Some of that may be your head coach. They like to try to take advantage of when they think teams aren't paying enough attention or doing certain things and try to get an advantage with their special teams unit. They've done it for years. They've stolen points and stolen playoff games with it. And we get super pissed when it doesn't work. But when it works, do we like it.
I will still always be in the camp of just take a touch pack and give it to Pat.
Without the Kadarius Toney return last year, this may be a different conversation. Without
the
Cole's return against the Texans, it may be a different conversation in 19.
Touchback and
Tony wasn't feeling that ball inside the 10 either.
I agree.
That's true.
I agree. McCole the week before fielded one inside the 5 and on a punt with punt safe, and then took it back 60 yards to set him up. Like when it works, we love it. When it doesn't, we hate it.
Great. But more times than not, it doesn't work.
Like I said, hindsight is always 20/20. And Seren says this all the time on 810. It's a get it right business. So if you get it right, you're a genius, and if it doesn't work, you're a moron. That's how it works.
That's true. Just like a little 3rd and 1 Kadarius Toney handoff inside that he just runs into the back of the guard.
And that one's not on Dave Tobe, kids.
Yeah. So, Randy, score prediction. What do you got?
27-20, Kansas City.
Okay.
Hold the Dolphins to 20. I like it.
I think, like I said, our defensive line does enough and causes enough chaos to throw them out of rhythm. But Miami is a good offense. They have too many weapons that you're not gonna hold them to 10 or 13. Like they're gonna score a couple times. They're gonna end up with a couple field goals. But I think in the end, I think McDuffie comes with a big pick late, and we get another 5-6 sacks on the day, and that causes enough problems. So,
and Randy, they legitimately could hold that team to 20 points, provided this offense doesn't, give them the ball 3 or 4 extra times.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah, that is a big thing. They're getting the short field is going to be tough.
Don't give Miami 4 extra possessions. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. I'm going to go like same ballpark, kind of just 31-28. I think it'll be a close game. I think the Chiefs ultimately in games like these, like you really have to go back to like the coaching staff, and like although we just talked about for a lot like 30 minutes about how the coaching staff has been pretty poor, I still think I would take Andy Reid over Mike McDaniel. I think ultimately, like I said, Mike McDaniel, he's a great offensive mind and play caller and all that stuff. But as it comes to being a head coach, there's a lot of stuff that goes into being a good head coach and understanding the rhythm of the game. And so ultimately, I think Andy Reid, the veteran, will pull one out at the end. And, it won't be fun. I'll tell you, it probably won't be the most fun game. It never is. But I think the Chiefs end up squeaking one out in Germany and then get a ride on the championship, that they got out there.
That thing is so nasty. That thing is loaded up. It's so cool.
Yeah, that thing is sick. So it'd be a real shame to ride that if you lost the game. So they have to win. They have already had the after party set up.
So I'll leave you guys with this, and a lot of it is to Garrett's point there about the Andy situation and how we just talked about how frankly not great the coaching has been in a lot of certain segments, especially on the offensive side of the ball this year. You know who's tired of answering questions about why this offense and especially this receiver core is not doing certain things a certain way? Andy Reid. If you missed his press conference today, he was very over answering questions about why this wide receiver group in this offense is sputtering. And he made it as clear as Andy can make it without doing anything out of Andy's norm, that these are going to get fixed or things are going to change is essentially the coded text he sent out today.
I hear it, Andy. I'm just saying.
You pull Connor Embry into the office, and he gets a come to Jesus speech this week.
Oh, I think Andy probably walked into the offensive meeting room this week and went, "All right, everybody."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something needs to change. Like I said, I respect Andy for it, but also, hey, Andy, we need something to change. I'm just saying,
he's where it has to start because, like I said earlier, a lot of these decisions with the play calling stop with him, and he's the one that's got to get better in some of these areas, and he knows it. And y'all can come yell at me because I'm bagging on Andy. No, I'm not. I'm telling you exactly what Andy has said. They need to fix it, and it starts with him.
Right.
Yeah. If you want it done the right way, you got to do it yourself. So, that being said, that's everything we've got for you today on this episode of The Kingdom Says. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. Check us out on YouTube, The Kingdom Says, and then Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Kingdom Says Pod. Find us on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at, Kingdom Says Podcast.
Please subscribe. Please tell us if you like us. Please leave a review. If you have a question in the review and you leave a review and it's a nice 5-star review, we'll probably try to find that question and answer it for you.
Yeah. So tweet at us, post at us, whatever, Instagram at us, Facebook at us.
There's all kinds of ways to reach us.
Yeah. Comment on our YouTube. Check it out. Subscribe. Like.
Not at all. We're here.
Yeah. So, and then, hopefully, everyone wake up nice and early, and hopefully our days don't have a rocky start.
We're going to know how Sunday's going before we get to noon for most of us.
Quick.
So.
Yeah, it's really going to set the tone for the rest of the day. It sure will. So, yeah, be ready for that one, Chiefs Kingdom. Win or loss, it's not going to be the end of the world. So just remember that. So, thank you all for tuning in and watching, and we will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.